I woke up that morning like any other. The sun filtering through the thin curtains of my modest two-bedroom house on the edge of our suburban Chicago neighborhood. At 32, I'm Emily Thompson, a single adoptive mom scraping by as a freelance graphic designer, working from my cluttered home office while keeping an eye on my 5-year-old son, Alex. He's the light of my life. This little orphan boy I took in 2 years ago after his parents, distant relatives, passed away in a car accident. I stretched and headed to the kitchen, starting the coffee maker with a yawn, then peeked into Alex's room where he was still snoring softly under his dinosaur blanket. "Morning, buddy," I whispered, gently shaking his shoulder. He blinked up at me with those big brown eyes, rubbing them sleepily. "Mommy, is it pancake day?" he asked, his voice all hopeful and innocent. I smiled, pulling him into a hug. "Not today, sweetie, but how about some toast with jelly? We gotta get you to daycare soon." He nodded, hopping out of bed as I helped him into his clothes, a simple t-shirt and jeans that were getting a bit snug. We sat at the small kitchen table, me sipping black coffee while he munched on his breakfast, chattering about the new blocks at daycare. My phone buzzed with a client email, reminding me of a logo deadline later that afternoon. I replied quickly, balancing the laptop on my lap, thinking about how this routine kept us afloat, even if it meant pinching pennies every month. After dropping Alex off at the local daycare center, I swung by the mailbox on my way back home. There was the usual junk flyers for lawn services and a bill from the utility company. But then I pulled out a thick envelope with the HOA stamp addressed to me in official block letters. My stomach did a little flip. Mom had mentioned something about neighborhood updates at our last family dinner, but this looked serious. I tore it open right there on the driveway, the paper crisp under my fingers. The words hit me like a slap. Notice of eviction. It cited violations for unauthorized occupancy because I was raising an orphan child, claiming it didn't fit the community's family standards. And there, at the bottom, was the signature Karen Thompson, HOA president, my own mother. My hands shook as I read it again. The date stamped just yesterday, giving me 30 days to vacate. I stumbled inside, slamming the door behind me, and sank onto the couch. How could she do this? I'd put my life on hold for her so many times, quitting a full-time job to nurse her through that bout of pneumonia 3 years ago, handling her errands when her arthritis flared up, biting my tongue through her endless criticisms about my choices. I'd endured the side eyes from neighbors, the whispers about being a single mom with an adopted kid, all to keep the peace in our family. But evicting me, threatening to take away the only home Alex and I had, that was a line I never thought she'd cross. My phone rang, jolting me out of my daze. It was Mom. I stared at the screen for a moment, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Before I picked up, "Emily, did you get the mail today?" Her voice was brisk, like she was checking off a to-do list. "Yeah, Mom." "I did," I said, trying to keep my tone steady, but it came out sharper than I intended. "What's this eviction notice about? You signed it." There was a pause. Then she sighed dramatically. "Oh, honey, it's nothing personal. The board's been getting complaints. You know how it is? Rules are rules. That child isn't biologically yours, and it disrupts the neighborhood's image. I'm just doing my job as president." "Your job," I echoed, standing up and pacing the living room, my free hand clenching into a fist. "Mom, this is my home, Alex's home. How can you say it's not personal? I've done everything for you, and this is how you repay me." "Emily, don't be dramatic," she snapped back. "You've always been too sensitive. The HOA has standards to maintain property values. If you can't follow them, maybe it's time to find somewhere else. I tried to warn you when you took in that boy." I felt tears pricking my eyes, but I blinked them away. "Warn me. You encouraged me at first, said it was noble. Now you're kicking us out because it doesn't fit your perfect little world. Listen, young lady," she said, her voice rising. "I've worked hard to build this community. Sacrifices have to be made. Come over for dinner tonight, and we'll talk it out properly. No need to blow this up." "Fine," I muttered, hanging up before she could say more. I tossed the phone onto the coffee table, my mind racing. The notice crinkled in my hand as I reread the details. Fabricated complaints about noise and upkeep that I knew weren't true. This wasn't just a rule, it felt like a targeted attack. But why? I'd always been the dutiful daughter, swallowing my pride, on my pride to avoid conflict. As the afternoon wore on, I tried to focus on work, sketching designs on my tablet, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Mom's cold tone. By the time I picked up Alex from daycare, I was forcing a smile for his sake. "How was your day, Mommy?" he asked, buckling into his car seat. "It was okay." "Kiddo," I lied, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "Just some grown-up stuff." That evening, I drove the short distance to Mom's house, the one she'd lived in since Dad passed away 10 years ago. It was bigger than mine, with a manicured lawn and fresh paint perks of being the HOA head. I parked and walked up the path, the eviction notice folded in my purse like a weight. Inside, the smell of her famous lasagna wafted from the kitchen, but it did nothing to ease the knot in my stomach. Mom greeted me at the door with a hug that felt too tight, too performative. "Emily, come in. Dinner's almost ready." Alex ran ahead to the living room, where he knew there were toys waiting. I followed Mom to the kitchen, watching her stir the sauce with practiced ease. "So, about that notice," I started, leaning against the counter. "Can we appeal it?" "Talk to the board." She set down the spoon and turned to face me, her expression firm. "The decision's final. Dear, it's for the best. You'll find a nice apartment downtown. Start fresh, start fresh," I repeated, my voice cracking. "Mom, Alex needs stability. This is our life. You're uprooting. Emily, you're 32 years old. Time to stand on your own without dragging down the family name," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "I've got a reputation to uphold here. Neighbors talk, you know." I stared at her. The woman who'd raised me, now looking at me like I was a problem to solve. "Reputation. Is that what this is about? Your precious HOA title." "Don't raise your voice," she warned, glancing toward the living room where Alex was playing. "Let's eat and discuss calmly." We sat down at the table, the meal tense as Alex babbled about his day. Mom smiled at him, but her eyes on me were calculating. Midway through, my phone buzzed, a text from a neighbor friend. "Lisa, heard about the notice. So sorry. Karen's been pushing this for weeks." I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door and pulling up old emails on my phone. There they were, HOA newsletters Mom had forwarded. Buried mentions of updating occupancy rules. My heart sank as I realized this wasn't sudden. She'd planned it. Back at the table, I confronted her quietly. "How long have you been working on this?" "Mom." She forked a bite of lasagna, not meeting my eyes, long enough to know it's necessary. "Now, eat your food." The rest of dinner passed in strained silence. Alex, oblivious as he drew pictures with crayons Mom provided. When it was time to leave, she walked us to the door. "Think about it, Emily," she said, patting my arm. "It's tough love." I nodded numbly, buckling Alex into the car. But inside, something shifted. As I drove home, the streetlights blurring through unshed tears, I knew I couldn't just accept this. The notice in my purse wasn't just paper, it was proof of betrayal, and it lit a quiet fire in me, a resolve to uncover what else she was hiding. I drove home from Mom's house that night with my mind spinning, the eviction notice burning a hole in my purse like some kind of poison. Alex was asleep in the back seat, his little chest rising and falling peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I kept glancing at him in the mirror, thinking about how I'd fought so hard to give him a stable life after adopting him. And now my own mother was trying to rip it all away. By the time I tucked him into bed, my hands were still shaking, and I couldn't shake the anger bubbling up. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the notice under the dim light, rereading every line, fine, as if it would change. The next morning, I dropped Alex off at daycare again, forcing a smile for the teachers. But inside, I was a mess. I had a client deadline looming, but I couldn't focus on the graphic designs staring back at me from my laptop screen. Instead, I pulled up my email and started searching through old messages from Mom, those HOA newsletters she'd forwarded over the months. There were hints in there, subtle ones, about tightening community guidelines and addressing non-traditional households. It made my stomach twist. Why hadn't I seen this coming? I'd always been the one to smooth things over, to avoid rocking the boat, but now it felt like the boat was sinking. I decided I couldn't just sit there. I texted Mom, asking if I could come over later that afternoon to talk things through. Like she suggested, she replied quickly, "Dear, bring Alex if you want." I didn't. I left him at daycare a bit longer, paying the extra fee I could barely afford, and headed to her house around 3. The neighborhood looked so normal, kids on bikes, lawns being mowed, but it all felt fake now, like a facade hiding something rotten. I parked in her driveway and walked up, knocking lightly before letting myself in with the spare key she'd given me years ago. "Mom, it's me," I called out, stepping into the living room. The place was spotless as always, with her collection of porcelain figurines lined up on the shelves, everything in its perfect place. In the kitchen, she yelled back. I found her chopping vegetables for what looked like soup. Her apron tied neatly around her waist, she looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Emily, good to see you. Want some tea?" "Sure," I said, sitting at the island counter, watching her pour hot water from the kettle. "Mom, about the notice. I need to understand why." "Really, why?" She set the mug in front of me and sighed, leaning on the counter. "Honey, I've told you. It's the rules. We've had complaints, noise from Alex playing outside, that sort of thing. As president, I have to enforce them fairly." "Complaints? From who?" I pressed, stirring the tea without drinking it. "No one's ever said anything to me directly. And Alex is 5, he plays like any kid." She waved a hand dismissively. "Neighbors. Emily, you know how Mrs. Jenkins is about her garden. And others. It's not just you. We're updating policies for everyone." "That doesn't make sense." I shot back, my voice rising a bit. "You've always said Alex was a blessing. Now suddenly he's a violation. Come on." "Mom, be straight with me." Her face hardened, and she straightened up. "Don't interrogate me in my own home. I've built this HOA from the ground up after your father died. It gives me purpose, keeps property values high. Your situation, it's unconventional. People talk, and it reflects on me." "Reflects on you," I echoed, feeling the rejection hit like a punch. "So this is about your image, not about helping your daughter and grandson." "Grandson," she scoffed, turning back to the vegetable. "He's not blood. Emily, you chose this path. I warned you adopting him would complicate things." I stared at her back, my mouth open in shock. There it was, the truth slipping out. Not about rules, but about her precious reputation. I felt tears welling up, but I swallowed them down. "I thought family meant more than that to you?" She didn't respond right away, just kept chopping. Then her phone rang on the counter, and she glanced at it before picking up. "Hello?" "Yes, this is Karen." "Oh, about the board meeting tomorrow." "Hold on." She stepped into the hallway for privacy, but I could hear snippets. "Yes, the Thompson property. Violations documented. Eviction should go through smoothly." My blood ran cold. "Fidel." I glanced around, spotting her laptop open on the side table in the living room. While she was distracted, I slipped over and woke the screen. It wasn't password protected. Typical mom. Thinking no one would dare snoop, I quickly opened her email inbox, scanning for anything related to the HOA. There were chains of messages with board members, dating back months. One subject line jumped out, addressing non-compliant residences. I clicked it, my heart pounding. Inside, Mom had written, "Emily's setup with the orphan boy is drawing attention. We need to cite occupancy rules to maintain standards. Attached are fabricated logs of complaints. Use them if needed." Fabricated. I scrolled down, seeing attached files with fake dates and signatures from neighbors who'd never complained. One even mentioned disrupting community harmony because of my unwed mother status. It was all there, her planning this for months, motivated by fear that my life choices would tarnish her as the perfect leader. I felt a wave of humiliation crash over me, like I was some embarrassment she needed to erase. Mom's voice grew louder in the hall. "Yes, I'll handle it. No leniency." I closed the email tab just as she hung up and walked back in. "Everything okay?" she asked, eyeing me suspiciously. "Yeah, Just checking the time, I lied, forcing a smile. I need to pick up Alex soon. We chatted awkwardly for a few more minutes about nothing important, but my mind was racing. As I left, I hugged her goodbye, feeling her stiffen slightly. In the car, I pulled out my phone and started recording a voice memo to myself, noting down what I'd seen in those emails. I couldn't confront her yet, not without more proof, but this rejection stung deep, pushing me to act quietly. That evening, after putting Alex to bed with a story, I sat at my computer and dug deeper. I remembered Mom had shared her HOA cloud drive password once for a favor. Logging in remotely, I found more meeting minutes where she'd pushed for stricter rules, specifically targeting non-traditional families. There was even an email to a lawyer friend asking about eviction loopholes. It all pointed to her obsession with control and image. My phone buzzed, a call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail, listening later. Emily, hope you're not upset. Let's have dinner tomorrow, family time. Family time? After what I'd uncovered, I recorded the message too, adding it to my growing file of evidence. The next day, I went back to her house for that dinner, keeping up appearances for Alex's sake. He played in the yard while I helped set the table. Mom was her usual bossy self, directing everything. During a lull, her phone rang again. It was a neighbor, Mr. Patel. She stepped out to the patio, but I followed quietly, cracking the door to listen. Yes, the eviction's set. Emily won't fight it. She's too soft. This keeps our neighborhood elite, she said, laughing lightly. I recorded it on my phone, hidden in my pocket. When she came back in, I smiled and asked about dessert, but inside, the pain of her betrayal was fueling me. This wasn't just rejection, it was calculated. I gathered more that night, snapping photos of HOA papers she'd left out, including one with her notes on removing family liabilities. By the time we left, Alex yawning in my arms, I had a small dossier, emails, recordings, photos. It escalated everything, but I had to stay calm for him. The intrigue was building, and I knew I needed to keep digging without her suspecting. Little did she know, her perfect world was about to crack. The days after uncovering those emails and recordings blurred into a haze of quiet fury and forced normalcy. I'd wake up early, make breakfast for Alex, drop him at daycare, then dive into my freelance work. But my mind was always plotting. I had that dossier growing, printed emails, transcribed voicemails, even a USB with the audio files backed up. It felt like armor, but I wasn't ready to use it yet. I needed more, something irrefutable. That evening, after tucking Alex in with his favorite story about dragons, I sat at my desk and scrolled through news alerts on my phone. That's when I saw a headline about Apex Real Estate Corporation acquiring several suburban neighborhoods for redevelopment. My heart skipped. Apex was my company, the one I'd built from scratch over the last 5 years, starting with online real estate consulting gigs. That turned into a full-blown corporation. I'd kept it anonymous, using a pseudonym for public dealings, because I didn't want family drama mixing with business. But now, this acquisition included our neighborhood. It was part of a larger plan to modernize outdated communities, and I'd approved it months ago, never thinking it'd hit home like this. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, the pieces clicking. If Apex was taking over, that meant inspections for contract compliance, old HOA agreements, building permits, all of it. Mom's house had those unauthorized additions she'd done years ago, like that sunroom extension without proper permits. She'd bragged about skirting the rules to save money. If flagged, it could lead to evictions for breaches. I hadn't connected it before, but now it felt like fate. I picked up my phone and called my assistant at Apex, Sarah, keeping my voice low. Sarah, it's me, I said, glancing at Alex's door to make sure he was asleep. Pull up the details on the Chicago suburban acquisition. Focus on Willow Creek neighborhood. Got it, boss, she replied, her keyboard clicking in the background. Inspection teams are scheduled for next week. Any specifics? Check for HOA violations. The president there, Karen Thompson, she's got some undocumented mods on her property. Flag them if they come up. There was a pause. Thompson, like your last name, just do it, I said firmly, and keep my involvement quiet. I'm handling this personally. We hung up. and I felt a rush of power mixed with guilt. This wasn't revenge yet, just positioning. The next morning, I acted normal, waving to neighbors as I backed out of the driveway. But inside, I was buzzing. By afternoon, the news hit the neighborhood group chat, buzzing with messages about the takeover. People were panicking, asking what it meant for their homes. I texted Mom, heard about the acquisition. You okay? She called back immediately. Emily, it's a disaster. Some big corporation swooping in. As HOA president, I have to rally everyone. Meeting tomorrow at the community center. You should come show support. I'll be there, I said, keeping my tone neutral. What do you know about it? Not much yet, she admitted, sounding stressed. But I'll fight it. Can't let outsiders dictate our lives. We hung up, and I smiled to myself, outsiders. If only she knew. That night, I reviewed Apex files on my secure laptop, confirming the acquisition was airtight. Our neighborhood's old contracts had clauses about maintaining structures. Per code, violations could void residencies. Mom's sunroom was a prime target. I'd seen the permits myself years ago, or lack thereof. The meeting day arrived, and I dropped Alex at a friend's for playtime, then headed to the community center. The room was packed, about 50 neighbors milling around, coffee in hand, voices raised in worry. Mom stood at the front, banging a gavel on the podium to start. Order. Everyone, she called out, her voice authoritative. As your HOA president, I've called this emergency meeting about the Apex takeover. We've got inspectors coming, and we need a united front. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mr. Patel stood up. Karen, what does this mean? Evictions. Not if we fight, she said, pounding her fist lightly. I've already contacted lawyers. We'll challenge the acquisition on community grounds. I sat in the back, watching her perform, her face flushed with that leader's glow she loved. A few people clapped, but others looked skeptical. Then the door opened, and in walked the inspection team, 3 suits from Apex, clipboards in hand. I'd briefed them vaguely, but they didn't know me personally. Excuse me, the lead inspector, a tall man named Greg, said, Yes, sir. Stepping to the front, we're here on behalf of Apex Real Estate. This is a preliminary walkthrough. We've identified several properties with potential contract breaches. The room erupted. Mom shot to her feet. This is our meeting. You can't just barge in. Ma'am, the acquisition gives us access. Greg replied calmly, handing out flyers. We're flagging issues like unauthorized construction. For example, 142 Oak Street, that's yours. Ms. Thompson has an unpermitted extension. Mom's face paled. That's ridiculous. I have permits. Greg shook his head. Our records show otherwise. It's a violation of the original development contract. Could lead to eviction proceedings. Neighbors gasped. Turning to her, Mrs. Jenkins whispered loudly, Karen, you told us everything was up to code. It is. Mom snapped, her voice cracking. This is harassment. Who do you think you are? I stayed silent, my pulse racing. This was the peak, the first real hit. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on me. Emily, back me up. Tell them, this is our home. I stood slowly, feeling all eyes on me. Mom, if there are violations, we have to face them. Rules are rules, right? That's what you always say. Her jaw dropped. What? You're siding with them. I'm just saying fairness, I replied, my voice steady. You've enforced rules on others. Now it's your turn. The room buzzed louder. Mr. Patel nodded. She's right. Karen, you've been tough on us. Mom glared at me, then turned to Greg. I demand to speak to your CEO. This won't stand. Greg checked his tablet. The CEO's aware. Inspections proceed. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, Mom pulled me aside. Date in the hallway, her grip tight on my arm. What was that? Emily, undermining me in public. You undermined me first, I whispered back, pulling away. With that eviction notice, this takeover, it's exposing everything. She scoffed. You think this affects me? I'll fight it. And you still out in 30 days. I met her eyes, holding back the truth. We'll see. She stormed off, rallying a small group of loyalists. I slipped out, calling Sarah from the car. How's it looking? Flags are up, she said. Her property's top of the list for breaches. Others too. but hers is blatant. Good, I replied, starting the engine. Keep me posted. Picking up Alex, I hugged him extra tight, his laughter easing the tension, but inside, the injustice burned her begging for leniency while denying me the same. I wasn't revealing my CEO role yet. Let her squirm. The meeting had amplified everything, her public unraveling just the start. As I drove home, I knew the low point was coming. But for now, this conflict peak felt like sweet, hidden justice. The high from that HOA meeting didn't last long. I drove home with Alex chattering about his playdate, but my mind was stuck on Mom's shocked face when the inspectors called her out. It felt good for a moment, seeing her squirm under the same rules she'd thrown at me. But as I pulled into my driveway, the reality hit hard. My own eviction notice was still active, counting down those 30 days Apex's takeover might expose her. But it didn't automatically save me. I carried Alex inside, his little hand in mine, and set him up with cartoons while I heated up leftovers for dinner. The house felt smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in. That night, after Alex was asleep, I sat on the couch with my laptop, staring at the Apex dashboard. As CEO, I could pull strings, but I had to be careful. Revealing myself too soon could backfire. I scrolled through the inspection reports Sarah had sent. Mom's sunroom was flagged, sure, but so were a few minor things on my property. Stuff Mom had probably invented to justify my eviction. I rubbed my temples, feeling the weight of it all. I'd built Apex from nothing, late nights after Dad died, turning freelance gigs into a corporation. It was my secret escape, but now it tangled with family mess. My phone buzzed a text from Lisa, the neighbor who'd tipped me off before. Hey, Emily, heard about the meeting. Karen's furious. She's telling everyone you're stirring trouble with the corporation. I texted back. What? I barely said anything. Lisa replied. She's saying you're jealous, trying to sabotage her. Watch your back. I set the phone down, my stomach nodding. Isolation crept in fast. The next morning, I woke to more messages in the neighborhood chat, people I'd thought were friendly, now siding with Mom. Karen's right. We need to stick together against outsiders. One said. Another. Emily, what's your deal? Supporting the takeover. I didn't respond, just deleted the app from my home screen, dropping Alex at daycare. Even the teacher gave me a weird look, like she'd heard rumors. Work was a blur. I tried sketching a logo for a client, but my hand shook on the tablet. The deadline loomed, but all I could think about was Mom's voice from that recorded call, laughing about how soft I was. I called my distant friend, Mia, the one I'd confided in before. We'd met in college, but she lived across state lines now. Mia, it's Emily, I said when she picked up. Things are getting worse. Girl, spill, she replied, her voice warm but concerned. Last you said, your mom was evicting you. Now what? I paced the living room, glancing at Alex's toys scattered on the floor. The corporation taking over flagged her house for violations. She begged for help at the meeting, but I stayed quiet. Now she's spreading lies about me being unfit, jealous, even called child services. I think child services. Mia gasped. That's low. Even for her, sir. You have proof of her stuff. Yeah, the dossier emails, recordings. But if I use it now, it might escalate. And Alex? He's asking why we're packing boxes. We'd started packing a few things, just in case. Alex had seen me folding clothes and asked, Mommy, are we going on a trip? I'd smiled and said maybe, but it broke my heart. Emily, you need to be careful, Mia warned. Don't act rash. Gather more, then strike. You're not alone. I can come visit if needed. Thanks, I muttered. But right now, I feel like I am Neighbors are turning. Family's just her. We talked a bit longer, her urging me to breathe. But after hanging up, the silence hit. I sank to the floor, back against the wall, tears finally coming. All those years of silence, nursing Mom through illnesses, skipping promotions to help her, enduring her jabs about my life. I'd never spoken up, thinking family stuck together. But her crossing that line, evicting us over her reputation, it shattered everything. That afternoon, a knock at the door jolted me. I wiped my face and opened it to find a woman in a suit, badge clipped to her pocket. Miss Thompson, I'm from Child Protective Services. We received a report about unstable living conditions. My heart dropped. What? Who reported? Anonymous. Ma'am, she said, stepping inside when I numbly let her. Concerns about eviction and child welfare. I showed her around. Alex playing quietly in his room. She asked questions. Income, routine, support. I answered steadily, showing freelance contracts, daycare receipts. But inside, humiliation burned. Mom had done this, weaponizing my love for Alex against me. It's routine, she assured me, leaving with notes. We'll follow up. I closed the door, leaning against it, breathing hard. Alex peeked out. Who was that? Mommy. Just a visitor. Sweetie, I said, scooping him up. Want to make cookies? We baked together, his giggles filling the kitchen, but my mind raced. That evening, alone again, I pored over legal docs at the table. Apex files showed more Mom's HOA funds skimmed for personal stuff, like trips disguised as community expenses, forged receipts. Bank transfers, it was embezzlement, plain ye and simple. I discovered it digging deeper, cross-referencing with public records. A witness statement from an old board member who'd quit slipped to me anonymously via email, but using it now felt risky. I needed perfect timing. My phone rang. Mom, I answered, voice flat. What do you want? Emily, that CPS visit, not my doing. She said quickly, must be a mix-up. Bull, I snapped. You hinted at it, spreading rumors I'm unfit. She paused. You're paranoid. The takeover's stressing everyone. Come over. Let's talk. No, I said. You've isolated me enough. Emily, don't be like this. Family helps family. Like you helped me. I shot back. Evicting your daughter and grandson for your ego. He's not, she started, then stopped. Fine. Sulk. But you'll regret fighting me. She hung up, and I tossed the phone, feeling the dip deepen. Rock bottom alone, humiliated, with Alex's future hanging. Rumors spread. A neighbor avoided me at the mailbox next day. Sorry, Emily. But Karen says. I nodded, walking away, isolation complete. But in the quiet night, poring over that dossier, a resolve stirred. I planted an anonymous tip to authorities about HOA funds. No trace back to me. Vulnerability peaked. But it fueled me. I wasn't acting yet. Just waiting. The low point hurt, but it sharpened my edge. The child services visit left me reeling, but it also lit a fire under me that I couldn't ignore anymore. I spent the next morning at my kitchen table, sipping cold coffee, while Alex colored pictures at my feet, his crayon scratching across the paper in happy little strokes. I'd called in a favor to keep him home from daycare today, saying he had a sniffle. But really, I just needed him close after that scare. My laptop was open, and I stared at the screen, pulling up the Apex portal again. As CEO, I had access to resources most people could only dream of, and it was time to use them. I typed in a quick email to Sarah, my assistant, hire a private auditor for the Willow Creek HOA. Focus on financials discreetly, she replied within minutes. On it. Boss. Expect prelims in 48 hours. I closed the laptop and knelt down to Alex's level, ruffling his hair. What you drawing there, buddy? A house for us, he said, holding up a scribble of blue and green with a big yard so I can play forever. My chest tightened, but I smiled. Looks perfect. We'll make sure we stay right here, okay? He nodded, going back to his art, and I stood up, pacing the room. The isolation from the neighborhood stung, but it sharpened my focus. Mom's rumors had turned folks against me, but I knew not everyone bought her act. There was Mrs. Ellis, an older widow who'd quit the HOA board last year after clashing with Mom. I'd seen her at the meeting, looking skeptical. I grabbed my phone and scrolled to her number. She'd given it to me once for a bake sale. My thumb hovered over the call button, then I hit it. Hello, Mrs. Ellis answered, her voice wary but kind. Hi, it's Emily Thompson from down the street, I said, keeping my tone light. Hope I'm not bothering you. Oh, Emily, no bother. What's on your mind? I leaned against the counter, watching Alex. It's about the HOA and the takeover. I heard you left the board. Any reason? There was a pause, then she sighed. Karen's ways. Dear. She pushed too hard, skimmed funds for her pet projects. I called her out, but she shut me down. Got witnesses, too. If it matters. My pulse quickened. Witnesses. Like what? Emails, meetings, notes. A couple neighbors saw her fudge receipts for that fancy trip she called HOA conference. I kept copies, proof she embezzled dues. Would you share that? I asked, my voice steady. Anonymously, if you want. Another pause. For you. Yes, she's targeting your family now. It's wrong. I'll email them over. We hung up, and I felt a surge of hope. Minutes later, my inbox pinged with attachments, scanned receipts, bank statements showing transfers to her personal account, even a witness statement from Mr. Patel about questionable expenses. It was gold-clear evidence of misconduct. I saved it all to my dossier, printing copies and tucking them into a folder hidden in my desk drawer. But Mom wasn't done escalating. That afternoon, as I played blocks with Alex in the living room, my phone buzzed with a text from her. Child Services report came back clean, but don't push me. HOA's filing a formal complaint about your property upkeep trash bins out too long, weeds, eviction stands. I stared at the screen, anger flaring. She was doubling down, using her power to nitpick. I texted back, fine. See you at the next meeting. Alex looked up. Mommy, why you mad? Just grown-up stuff. Sweetie, I said, forcing a smile and stacking another block. Let's build a tower taller than me. We played until nap time, and once he was down, I got back to work. Sarah called. Auditors in prelim report. Irregularities in HOA accounts. Over $10. 000 unaccounted for. Trace to personal purchases. More details incoming. Send it all, I replied. And check security footage from the community center. Any cameras catch her meetings. On it, she said. We hung up, and I felt the strategy intensifying. This wasn't just defense anymore. It was building a counterattack. The next day, I met Mrs. Ellis at a coffee shop outside the neighborhood to avoid eyes. She slid a USB drive across the table. More here recordings from board calls where she admitted cutting corners. I took it, slipping it into my purse. Thank you. This means everything. She nodded. Karen's jealous of you. Emily, your independence. That boy, she's always needed control. We parted, and I drove home, plugging the USB into my laptop. The audio files played. Mom's voice, clear as day, saying, we'll reroute those funds, no one'll notice. Emily's independence. It's a joke. She relies on me. Jealousy. That was her motive. I paused the file, leaning back. It fit her jabs about my choices. Her need to keep me under thumb. I transcribed key parts, adding them to the folder. But then a twist hit. My doorbell rang mid-afternoon. I opened it to find a process server, handing me papers. Complaint from HOA. Violations on your property. Court date next month. I scanned the document. More fabrications. Neglected maintenance. Unauthorized child occupancy. So, Mom's signature at the bottom. My hands shook as I closed the door. Mommy, Alex called from the kitchen. Coming, I said, tucking the papers away. I wouldn't let him see this. Instead, I called Sarah again. Escalate the audit. I need everything on her finances. Fast. Got it, she replied. Also, footage from the center shows her meeting a contractor off books for her sunroom. No permits filed. Perfect, I said. Compile it into a report, anonymous for now. That evening, a neighbor ally, Lisa, texted. Karen's bragging at Bridge Club about shutting you down. Slipped that she's jealous of your secret success. What does that mean? Secret success. Did she suspect Apex? I texted back. Not sure, but record if she says more. Lisa sent an audio clip later. Mom's voice at the club. Emily thinks she's independent, but I'll clip her wings. That online business of hers, probably failing anyway. I saved the recording, adding it to the pile. The power dynamic was shifting. I had emails, bank records, footage, witnesses. Her escalation with the complaint only fueled me. The auditor's full report arrived the next morning via secure link. It detailed embezzlement, forged receipts for thousands, funneled to her accounts, witness statements corroborated, including one from a former treasurer. I printed it, organizing everything in my dossier. Physical evidence now thick enough to make a case. Alex tugged at my sleeve. Play outside. Sure, buddy, I said, taking his hand. We went to the yard, him kicking a ball while I watched, my mind on the next steps. Okay. Mom called then, her voice sweet. Emily, truce. Dinner tonight. No thanks, I replied. Busy. Suit yourself, she snapped. But that complaint's real. You'll lose. We'll see, I said, hanging up. Her threats didn't scare me anymore. I had leverage. The strategy was intensifying, and I felt stronger, ready for the reversal. The final inspection day arrived like a storm I'd been waiting for, and I could feel the tension in every muscle as I got ready that morning. I woke up early, before Alex even stirred, and stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my blouse and skirt to look professional, nothing like the casual mom the neighborhood knew. At 32, I'd hidden my CEO life from everyone here, but today that mask was coming off. I sipped my coffee at the kitchen table, flipping through the dossier one last time. The auditor's report on Mom's embezzlement. Those forged receipts for over $10, 000 skimmed from HOA funds. Bank transfers to her personal account for trips and luxuries, security footage of her off-books contractor meetings for that sunroom, emails plotting my eviction with fabricated complaints, and recordings where she admitted jealousy over my independence. It was all there, printed and backed up on a USB in my purse. Alex padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Mommy, where are you going? He asked. Climbing onto a chair, I knelt down and hugged him tight, smelling his shampoo. To a big meeting. Sweetie, Lisa's coming over to watch you. Be good. Okay, he nodded, and I helped him with breakfast, pouring cereal while my mind raced. Lisa arrived soon after, giving me a knowing look she'd been my ally, slipping me that Bridge Club recording where Mom bragged about clipping my wings. You got this. Emily, she whispered as I headed out. Show her what real power looks like. I drove to the neighborhood community center, the place packed with cars already, neighbors milled outside, chatting nervously about the apex inspectors and potential evictions. I parked and walked in incognito at first, slipping into the back row with a hat pulled low, my heart pounding. The room was set up with tables at the front, stacked with eviction papers for flagged homes, including Mom's. She stood at the podium, directing people like always, her voice booming. Everyone, take your seats, she called out, banging that gavel. This is our last stand against Apex. We'll review the violations and appeal them together. People shuffled in. About 60 of us crammed into the space. Mr. Patel sat near me, grumbling. Karen's acting like she's in charge, but her house is on the list too. I nodded silently, watching as the Apex team entered. Greg, the lead inspector, with 2 assistants carrying laptops and files. Mom approached them immediately, her smile forced. Welcome, though I wish it were under better terms, she said, extending a hand. I'm Karen Thompson, HOA president. Let's discuss leniency for our community. Greg shook her hand curtly. Miss Thompson, we're here to finalize. Violations stand unless proven otherwise. The meeting started. Greg reading off properties. Minor fixes for some, sir. But then he hit the big ones. 142 Oak Street unauthorized extension. Permit violations. Eviction recommended. Mom's face flushed. That's my home. There must be a mistake. I demand proof. Greg pulled up slides on a projector, showing photos of her sunroom overlaid with missing permit docs. Evidence here, plus HOA financial discrepancies tied to this property. Murmurs spread. Mrs. Jenkins stood up. Financial what? Karen, you said our dues were secure. They're twisting it. Mom snapped back, her hands gripping the podium. This corporation's out to destroy us. Who owns Apex anyway? Some faceless tycoon. That was my cue. I stood up slowly, removing my hat, and walked to the front, the room quieting as people recognized me. Mom's eyes widened. Emily, what are you doing here? I reached the table, picking up the eviction stack, and faced the crowd. I'm here because I know the truth, and it's time. Everyone did. Greg nodded to me. He'd been briefed anonymously via Sarah. I pulled out my dossier, laying files on the table one by one. First, the sunroom, I said, holding up the footage printouts. Security cams show off books work, no permits. But that's just the start. Mom laughed nervously. Emily, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself. Sit down. No, Mom, I replied, my voice steady but loud. You've embarrassed me enough. Like these emails planning my eviction for months, fabricating violations because my family doesn't fit your image. I passed copies to Greg, who projected them. Neighbors gasped, reading lines about removing non-traditional households and fake complaints. That's private, Mom yelled, lunging for the papers. You hacked me. No hack, I said, stepping back. You shared your password once, and here's more the auditor's report. Over $10, 000 embezzled from HOA funds, forged receipts for your trips, bank transfers to your account. I slid the report forward, pages flipping open to highlighted sections. Special Mr. Patel grabbed one. This is true. Our dues paid for your vacations. Lies, Mom shouted, her face red. Emily's jealous, always has been. She's making this up to sabotage me. The room erupted, people yelling questions. Mrs. Ellis stood. I saw it firsthand. Quit the board because of her skimming. Here's my statement. She waved a paper, and I nodded she'd emailed it to me. I played the Bridge Club recording on my phone, holding it up. Mom's voice filled the air. Emily's independence. A joke. I'll clip her wings. Silence fell. Then chaos again. Mom turned to me, eyes blazing. You traitor! After everything I've done for you, done for me, I echoed, stepping closer. You evicted me and Alex over your reputation, called child services, spread rumors I'm unfit. That's betrayal. Mom, not this. She pointed a finger. You're no daughter of mine. I'll sue you for slander. Greg intervened. Ma'am, this evidence warrants investigation. Authorities are on their way. I tipped them anonymously earlier. And sure enough, 2 officers entered from the back. Mom backed up. What? No. Ms. Thompson, one officer said, we have reports of embezzlement. Come with us for questioning. Neighbors whispered, some shocked, others nodding like they'd suspected. Mr. Patel spoke up. Karen, you targeted Emily for adopting that boy. Shameful. Mom glared at me, tears in her eyes now. How could you? I raised you. You raised me to be strong, I said coldly, picking up her eviction paper. And now, as CEO of Apex Real Estate, I signed this. The room went dead silent. I revealed it the twist I'd held back. I pulled out my business card, handing it to Greg, who smiled faintly. She's the boss. Mom's jaw dropped. You, Apex. Impossible. I've built it anonymously for years. I explained to the crowd. Freelance started it. Grew into this, the acquisition, my decision, but your violations made it personal. She clutched the podium, shaking. You orchestrated this. For revenge. No, I said, signing her eviction with a flourish. For justice. You crossed the line, evicting family, now face the consequences. The officers cuffed her lightly for the walkout, her denials echoing, this isn't over. I'll fight. But witnesses stepped forward, Mrs. Ellis, Lisa, even Mr. Patel corroborating. I saw the fudged books, he said. As they led her away, she shot me one last look. Emily, please. I met her eyes. Goodbye, Mom. The room buzzed as she left, people approaching me with questions. Greg shook my hand. Well played. Ms. Thompson, I nodded, gathering my files, the reversal complete. Her attempts to manipulate silence by evidence and truth, the payoff hit hard, but I felt free, the explosive peak shifting everything. The community center cleared out slowly after the officers took Mom away, with neighbors whispering in small groups and casting glances my way as they filed through the doors. I stood there at the front table, stacking my dossier papers back into the folder with steady hands, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me like a heavy blanket. Greg from Apex approached me quietly, his clipboard tucked under his arm, and he extended his hand again with a nod of respect. Miss Thompson, that was quite the reveal, he said, his voice low enough not to carry a flag. We'll handle the evictions for the flagged property, but yours is clear now. I've marked it as resolved based on the evidence. I shook his hand firmly, thanking him for keeping things professional, and watched as he gathered his team to wrap up the paperwork scattered across the table. As the last few people left, Lisa came up to me with a supportive smile, touching my arm gently. "Emily, you were amazing up there," she said, her eyes shining a bit. I always knew Karen was pulling strings, but seeing it all laid out like that, wow. "If you need anything, like help with Alex or just to talk, I'm here." I nodded gratefully, telling her how much her recordings and tips had meant to the whole thing, and we exchanged a quick hug before she headed out to pick up her kids from school. The room felt echoey now, just me and the faint hum of the air conditioning, and I took a deep breath. Pulling out my phone to check the time, it was almost pickup for Alex at Lisa's place. But before I could leave, Mr. Patel walked over, holding one of the report copies I'd handed out. "Emily, I have to say, this changes everything," he started, folding the paper carefully. "Your mother's been running this HOA like her personal kingdom for years, and we've all paid for it literally. Those skimmed funds, that was our money for park repairs and events. Thank you for exposing it." I explained briefly how I'd uncovered it all through the audits and tips, and he shook his head in disbelief. "As a board member, I'll push for reforms now. Maybe you could advise us with your Apex experience." I smiled at that, saying I'd think about it once things settled, and he patted my shoulder before leaving, promising to rally the honest neighbors for a fair restructuring. Driving home, the streets of the neighborhood looked different somehow, with the late afternoon sun casting long shadows on the lawns that used to feel so judgmental. I stopped at Lisa's to get Alex, and he ran out the door with a drawing in his hand, waving it excitedly. "Mommy, look what I made a picture of our house staying forever," he yelled, climbing into the car seat as I buckled him in. Lisa leaned in the window, whispering that she'd heard about the meeting already through the grapevine. "Word spreading fast," she said. "People are relieved. Emily, Karen's out, and you're the hero." I thanked her again, driving off with Alex chattering about his day. And for the first time in weeks, the knot in my stomach started to loosen. That evening, I made us a simple dinner of pasta and salad, setting the table while Alex helped by placing the forks just so. My phone buzzed with updates from Sarah at Apex. She'd confirmed the neighborhood acquisition was moving forward, with plans to update homes affordably and keep families in place where possible. "Your property's secured," her text read, "and we've offered relocation aid to compliant residents." I replied with thanks, then sat down to eat with Alex, listening to him talk about wanting a puppy now that we weren't moving. "Can we, Mommy, since we're staying?" he asked, twirling his fork. I laughed softly, saying we'd think about it if he helped with chores, and he promised eagerly, making me feel that warm rush of stability we'd almost lost. Later, after tucking Alex into bed with a story and a kiss on his forehead, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, scrolling through more messages from neighbors. Mrs. Ellis had written, "Justice at last. Dear, if you need witnesses for any legal follow-up, count me in." Even Mrs. Jenkins, who'd been one of Mom's allies, sent a hesitant note. I didn't know the full story. "Sorry for the cold shoulder." It felt good. This shift in support, like the community was breathing easier without Mom's iron grip. But then a call came in from an unknown number, and I answered cautiously. "Emily, it's Aunt Rita," the voice said. "My mom's sister from out of state. I heard what happened today. Police called me. She's at the station, facing charges for embezzlement. They're talking fines, maybe probation, and she's lost her HOA position for good." I listened as she explained how Mom had called her in tears, begging for a place to stay since her house was being evicted. "She's moving in with me temporarily," Aunt Rita continued. "But Emily, she needs to reflect on what she's done. Pushing family away for power and money. I'm sorry it came to this." I told her I appreciated the update and that, while it hurt, Mom had crossed too many lines. "Tell her to think about compassion next time," I added before hanging up, feeling a mix of closure and pity. The next few days blurred into action. Apex teams started inspections for fair upgrades, and I oversaw them quietly as CEO, ensuring no one else got unfairly displaced. Neighbors formed a new temporary board, voting in Mr. Patel as interim president, and they invited me to consult on policies. Your ideas could make this place better, he said at a small gathering in the park where folks brought snacks and shared stories of mom's overreach. I shared a bit about building Apex from freelance work during tough times, and they applauded, one even saying, "You're proof that standing up pays off." Alex played nearby with other kids, laughing freely, and it hit me how far we'd come from that eviction notice. Weeks later, with Mom settled at Aunt Rita's and paying fines from her savings, I got a letter from her handwritten, surprisingly, "Emily, I see now how my need for control hurt you." It read, "Losing everything has made me reflect. Maybe one day we can talk." I set it aside, not ready yet, but knowing karma had done its work. Our home was safe, Alex's future bright, and I thrived leading Apex openly now with community respect. As I watched Alex sleep that night, I whispered to myself that compassion wins over greed. Closing this chapter on a note of hard-won peace and justice,